And oh, there we go. All right. Okay, everyone. There's people filtering in. I'm trying to figure out the Instagram thing. It's new to me. We're gonna run the reel, and then we're gonna get right back here. We're gonna talk to Murray. See you in just a second. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win. All right, Murray, great to have you joining me live today. A lot of people in the audience probably don't know you. Here, let's get a close up here on your good side. Can we see up close there? All right.
Looks like we froze.
Look, we're breaking the internet in every way we can. You and I actually met at a live event last fall. It was for franchisees of Napa Auto Pro, and you spoke about operational issues in their small business. So why don't we kick off with a little bit of introduction from you? Why don't you tell us who you are and about your background in the auto repair industry?
Sure, it was really good to be here again, David. 1986, started as a car wash attendant at a service station. A year and a half later, I was operating my first one. Then I got into one a couple years later with repair bays. That didn't go very well. Somehow I had the fuel and convenience store figured out. And I had a great coach, like I am now, and helped me with all of that. So 25 years later, was training dealers for major oil companies, and then started doing this business coaching for the aftermarket. So working with independent aftermarket shops, helping them be more profitable, have better lives, less stress, more vacation time, more flexibility, attract better clientele, attract better employees, and get prepared to sell their businesses. Had at least a half a dozen successfully sell theirs in the last couple of years. So I keep losing clients.
Well, so this is interesting. Let's talk a little bit about your experience with the oil company. So when you were working with the oil company, you were helping these business owners, obviously, because if they were more successful as customers of yours, they would continue to grow and to buy more of your product, right?
Yes. Well, I guess that would be a little bit different than what I do now, but basically it was people who were taking over a new location. Maybe they were business people in another setting, and it was their first time doing that. So teaching them the systems, the processes of, handling fuel, sales, marketing, that kind of stuff, the convenience store, the car wash, operations of all of that. And then I sort of went way more into the bays because of the coach that helped me, Bob O'Connor. That became my passion. And basically now it's just exclusively just with repair shops with bays, no more fuel. I haven't done that for over 20 years now. So,
the reason why I wanted to sort of circle back on that one point is that a lot of times when I'm talking with people about various different kinds of businesses, people will, they'll say, where do I learn about this? Where do I learn about that? And one of the places I will often point them to is to the suppliers in the industry, because people don't really realize the suppliers to an industry have a huge vested interest in the success of the people they're selling goods and services to. Yes. And they will often have, quite an array of tools available, but people often don't know to go and ask.
Correct. Well, as you mentioned, we met at a Napa Auto Pro convention. Napa Auto Parts, one of the biggest in the world, provides a lot of resources for their dealers. Me and a couple of my competitors being some of the resources that they bring along for them, right? And some of their other competitors let's just, we can be very transparent here. Worldpack, uh, APD Auto Parts in Alberta. These are people who buy their products from them, their car parts from them. They of course want them to succeed because they want them to buy more, pay their bills,
Right.
and at the end of the day, they'll really, what, David, there's a relationship that develops with our suppliers, right? If we could sort of go down that channel a little bit, is having a good relationship with your supplier has a really huge effect on your profitability. In fact, in our world, automotive repair shops, a fair bit of research has been done by a couple of people on the fact that if you buy 75% of your auto parts from one company, you will have about a 2% more net profit because of that loyalty. And because there's a lot of intangibles that happen. When you demonstrate that kind of loyalty, chances are if you have a rush delivery all of a sudden, you're going to get a rush delivery before your neighbor, right?
Right.
If you want to help one of your clients out, maybe the water pump failed just past warranty, right? And one of the parts companies will say, you know what, you buy a lot from us, we'll cover that pump for you, even though it's a month past, right? So at the end of the day, these types of things end up being, an additional 2% that even though, you could probably get the same depth of discount from the other companies and stuff like that, it has to do more with that relationship that you build with people. This idea of beating up suppliers for the lowest price never serves any business well at all.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I remember one of my first jobs out of university. I took a retail job while I was working on one of my first businesses, and the owner of that retail store had a lot of purchases with one particular supplier, and he let them know that he was interested in doing as much as possible price promotions if they could give him a good deal on pricing or whatnot. And because he was such a loyal customer of theirs, what would happen is when the salesperson had end of line or closeout of certain
Mm,
lines, they were calling him first to say, look, we've got 99 units of this stuff left. We'll let it go for this price if you want to take it all.
mhm,
And he was regularly buying these line closeouts so that he then in turn could do a big promotion and special
yeah.
at the store. And
Mhm,
it was only because of that relationship he was being made these offers.
yeah.
Other people didn't get the opportunity.
Yes. Those relationships can be so strategic, and they become friendships. Honestly, I there's people when I'm, the few times that I still travel for a few things, there's people I will sit down to that I've known for 20 years. There's people that have retired and I'm still working, and they're in Mexico right now, and we're chatting about how they're enjoying the weather in Mexico. We're still friends, right? Over all these years of them being a supplier, either when I had my shop or, working together as a coach and a trainer. So,
So, Murray, you were a guest speaker in my Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program. We talked a lot about sort of customer service aspects from the automotive industry that could be applied to many sort of service retail type businesses across the board. I know that today already in the comments there's some people here that are involved in the auto industry, and I'd like to sort of, because it is such a huge industry with a diversified ownership. Uh, you could probably tell me what percentage of auto repair bays are probably independently owned, versus like a dealer or something like that.
well, there's something like 4,500 dealers in Canada, new car dealers, and they represent an average of 12. I forget the exact number, but a lot of bays, 12 to 15 bays, and you've seen some of the big 30 bay ones, right?
Hmm.
And the number of aftermarket shops will range, depends on the study, from 12,000 to 16,000. But I think the 16,000 includes the big boxes, right? So the Canadian Tire, the Cal Tire, the Fountain Tire,
Okay.
more of a big box style thing. So somewhere in that range in Canada, yes, that's a big range, but I think it gives you a good idea how many of them are out
It
there.
could be half the bays then,
Oh
like
yeah,
somewhere
yeah. The
around there.
base, the average independent shop is running six-ish bays type of a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so about half the size for sure. And there's a lot of real small ones, right? Like 3 bay mom and pop. We call them mom and pops.
Yeah. Well, this is, and the reason why it's an interesting industry is because it means that there is a lot potentially of these businesses that are going to change hands at some point.
Hmm.
Someone's going to
Yeah.
want to retire or whatever other motivation is there. And so, if someone is interested in the auto trade,
there's certainly a lot of opportunity out there in any given city. There'll be a lot of these independently owned shops. What's some of the number one challenges or concerns that you see when you meet someone running one of these businesses?
The biggest foundational challenge is lack of business training, lack of management training, lack of business from the business standpoint. Most of the, let's use the 12,000, for example. If we eliminate the big box as a conversation, the 12,000, close to 95% of them are founded by automotive technicians, mechanics.
This
They're
is the
great
E-Myth
people,
thing,
right?
the
Yeah,
Michael Gerber
exactly, right?
thing. Yeah.
Michael Gerger thing, right? They're fantastic people. They're hardworking. They have this vision. They have this dream, and they wake up a year in, 2 years in, 3 years in, working harder than they've ever worked, not having the money that because they're focusing on the fixing of the car as opposed to the rest of it, or they're fixing on the sales as opposed to understanding gross profit margins and expenses. And then, of course, you throw in lack of human resources, knowledge and skill, lack of leadership skill, lack of communication skill, lack of hiring, lack of interview. So foundationally, that's the one piece. The opportunity for people buying places that are, and there's a lot of them like that. People are literally walking away in their 60s now because they've done okay. They probably paid their, they've got their mortgage and they maybe got a bit of savings. But a lot of them were counting on selling this business, and there's not a lot there to sell because they haven't built up that goodwill, right?
Yeah.
The other current real challenge is the shortage of automotive service technicians. The trades is challenged that way. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. However, the really well-run shops who understand how to run, how to be profitable, who attract the right clientele, the right vehicle mix, have great profits, have the money, they are attracting people. They're attracting technicians and service advisors and things like that. But that would be the sort of top 10%. Everybody else right now is sort of scrambling. Now there's been a little dip. We've kind of now got onto the normal economy post-COVID. This is Murray's perspective. I'm not an economist, but we're now seeing a quiet February. Back to the way a lot of Februarys in the past used to be, kind of a bit of a dip between seasons type of a thing.
And this is related to the shortage of new cars for a couple of years there, when all the manufacturing got kind of messed up. Okay.
Well, part of it was that. Part of it, there was just a lot of cash. Different subsidies. People didn't spend money on, they stayed home and stuff like that. So now, if you look at my peers, then I talk to my friends, neighbors, and peers, everybody's somewhere warm in February. So if their shops they go to, I think they're quiet, it's because their customers are all in Mexico or the Dominican or Cuba or something like that, right? So, and the money is going there. But back to the shortage of technicians, we're actually very excited to be working with a whole bunch of people where we're attracting young talent. We are going to the high schools, we're going to the colleges, we're looking for smart young people who have an aptitude for either the advising part or the technician part, and bringing them in and ramping their apprentices up really quickly. Now they still have to do the normal 4-year time in Canada that they would need to do, but ramping them up in terms of the skill level that they learned right away. Because there's been this thing with apprentices over the years of kind of, they'll learn by osmosis, and just follow me around and watch me, and someday you'll be a mechanic like me. Now we're having people, by their first month, they're doing full oil changes and services. They're doing tire repairs, tire changeovers, tire rotations. By 6 months, they're doing brakes. Highly supervised, skilled young people, right? So that we can ramp them up. And it's kind of like creating a farm team for a professional team. More and more people, the larger shops are beginning to focus on the new and the young versus worrying about attracting somebody else and from a competitor. So it takes work, though.
Traditionally in industry, if you want to dial the clock back, there were sort of the trade guilds, if you want to think about craftsmen in the 19th century. And then when the big factories came along, they had no choice but to train their employees on how to do the different jobs because there was no other place to learn these things. Over the last couple of decades, businesses like auto repair have kind of leaned upon, colleges and things to kind of create that workforce, right? Are you saying they're taking the training initiatives more in hand to try to get people more productive more quickly, like a more concerted effort to teach the skills to people?
Well, many of the colleges, and I'm familiar with them primarily in Canada. I know that you have a broader
Mm.
audience than that. And I'm aware of some pretty decent colleges in parts of the United States. Apparently, there's a couple of really good ones in Utah. Forget the name of them, but I have heard of them through one of my American competitors. The colleges are, for the most part, doing a pretty good job. Some of them are behind on the curriculum. So in other words, they're still teaching carburetors when maybe we should do a little bit more EV and hybrid. um, but it's more about the automotive shop owner taking responsibility for the workforce. In other words, it used to be we
Mm.
assumed that a group of young people, usually male, like cars, do auto shop and mechanic shop in high school, decide that they want to go pump gas at a gas station evenings and weekends and eventually begin working on cars. And that's kind of the natural progression, right? We kind of relied on the colleges to do their thing, the apprenticeship boards to do their thing, and we eventually had some apprentices. And and this is probably going to really tick a few people off, but those that know me will know where I'm coming from on this. The number of shop owners who have complained to me that their apprentice forgot to register for their next level of school. And I'm like, well, didn't you remind them? Wasn't it on a calendar? And they're like, well, that's their responsibility. They're the apprentice. They should be the ones signing themselves up. And I'm like, you just missed an opportunity to take a young person from second year to third year, because I said, I'm 60 in my 60s and I have a Google Calendar. If I don't look at my Google Calendar, I will miss meetings. I misread my calendar this morning, much to David's stress, and I was a couple of minutes late because I assumed 9 o'clock. So if a 60-something-year-old guy can make a mistake in the calendar, for goodness sakes, let's have a calendar for these apprentices and set a reminder for them to go. Yes, they're the ones that have to sign up and register for the course, and that is their responsibility. I'm not trying to take away the responsibility from the apprentice, but for goodness sakes, folks, let's have a plan. Let's have a calendar. Let's calendar their whole career out for the first 4 years so that we have great young people. Leaving it up to them, we're going to keep getting what we've got, which is insanity.
So you're basically just talking about the human resources development aspect of the business
Yes.
becoming part of the overall plan,
Yeah.
the strategic plan of how we operate this business. And that is new for a lot of these
Oh,
shops.
listen, David, I'm working on a concept of best practices with meetings, staff meetings, and things I've discovered and brought into play. This probably goes back maybe 10 years or so not that modern, but it's still an issue. I asked the shop owner, coached him to having his first staff meeting, and he was shaking. He was that nervous to have a meeting with his staff. And I'm thinking to myself, if you are that nervous as the owner, you lack those communication skills, even the most basic. I'm not talking about being an outgoing speaker like David and me, right? Just be yourself. You can be an introvert and still run a meeting. But the lack of skills in running meetings, well, the meetings always turn into bitch sessions. Well, who's responsible for that? Right? Just a key piece of advice for anybody listening. Very early on in my career, somebody taught me that anybody can bring a concern/complaint to a staff meeting as long as they bring two possible solutions along with that complaint. You know what happens when a human being has to think of two possible solutions to something they're complaining about? They generally stop complaining.
Or sometimes they can fix it on their own.
Exactly. That's kind of where we're going with that, right? So I would say another issue, never mind that, thank you for asking the question the way you did. It's not so much a shortage of technicians, it's a shortage of owners who understand the whole human resources, leadership, and communication piece. Because honestly, if you can do that, you've got it.
So you're kind of circling back in another way to this whole mechanic versus entrepreneur kind of thing, mechanic versus business owner with skills kind of thing. So it's interesting because I know my father-in-law owns one of these businesses, and he started off his career as a mechanic. And one of the things that he has said to me over the years is he has said that it took him a really long time to learn the lesson that he cannot pick up a wrench, because that's not where he delivers the most value to the business. It's either up front doing something with a customer, or it's upstairs making sure things are operating properly, right? Looking at numbers and reports and stuff like that. And so let me ask you this, and I've said many times on this channel that if you're going to buy a business, you should have some understanding of what goes on in the business. You should know the business to some degree, not necessarily that you need to be, for example, a mechanic. Do you think an experienced business manager in some other industry could do well coming into one of these shops as an owner? Do you think it needs to be a certain minimum size? Like, what scenario would you see that being a good thing, or how do you think that that idea would fail?
The best and most quick implementation of improvement and change in a business has been by non-mechanics buying shops
Okay.
that I've seen. Now, I will say, having some training from somebody like me, doesn't have to be me, but me or my competitors, with some of the unique features of automotive versus other businesses would probably keep you safer and steadier. But let me give you an example of someone. I can't use their names just
Yep.
for privacy reasons, but they're serial entrepreneurs. They have farmed for many years. They sold farm. They then had a mortgage brokerage firm. They then had a real estate firm. So they've had at least, I forget, 5 or 6 different businesses that they've built up and then they've sold. And the two of them as a couple sat down and said, okay, our kids have now reached a certain age. They're just all beginning to graduate from high school. We want a business that will have this kind of revenue, this kind of margin, this kind of location close to our home, something that each of our children could find a role in. So they had a set of criteria that they laid out, and then they put it out to people like you, a person like you, right? A broker or somebody, in the know of businesses that were for sale. And they were brought an automotive shop as one of the options. The next thing you know, luckily through one of the parts suppliers, they heard about me and took my 3-day SMART course. And these folks have been amazing. What they have brought to their shop, what they have brought to their peers in my coaching, like her knowledge of HR and all that kind of stuff is absolutely amazing. His ability to lead people and communicate has been amazing. When the two of them just started this fantastic team. So to me, it was just a dream made in heaven for that shop. Now, has there been ups and downs? Have there been some staffing things? It's in a fairly small community in the prairies of Canada. So they transitioned some of the changes slowly in terms of policies and pricing and different things like that. They were, it took them about 2 years to sort of flip it over to where it was run completely the way it should have been. But it's an amazing thing. And I see this happening all the time. And on that note, there's been some big discussions with my American peers about consolidation in the States, consolidation in veterinary clinics, dental clinics, accounting firms, and now automotive, where these income funds, or whatever you want to call them, are buying up shops and creating these franchise chains of shops and things like that. Now, at the end of the day, business is business, and these are some of the things that are going to happen. But a lot of us are thinking, if the existing owner of the shop doesn't get their act together and start running it the way it should and be profitable, it's going to get sold for less than it could be worth. But also, that reduces the number of opportunities for other one-time, like single individuals who want to be business owners to buy that shop. Luckily for Canada, I mean, the United States is huge. There's way, way, way more shops there, way more opportunity. But luckily in Canada, the consolidation has not really got here. There is a little bit of it. We're talking, 6 together, 12 shops together, that type of sort of a smaller thing, which, is not a bad model for somebody to do. But more of that could happen. And one of the concerns I have with that is because we're a smaller country, lower population, it then reduces the number of choices for vehicle owners, for the consumer, actually, right, at a certain point when it gets going that direction. So it's a really interesting time right now, David, in our sector in terms of opportunity. If I could digress momentarily into technology and the whole hybrid EV thing, I've always said with any of this kind of stuff, we'll just respond to it, be proactive, respond to it as it rolls out. We don't have to think about 2035 or 2050. Just are we ready to serve our clients that are beginning to make the transition to those types of vehicles? Meeting with one of my really long-term wise clients. He's been in business for a long time, bought the business from his parents. He said the transition of technology from 1980 to 2010 was greater than from 2010 to now, like in terms of for what automotive technicians had to learn. right? They're
Okay.
like, so, or even a little bit earlier than that. So if we think about, let's say, like, in my time, feedback carburetors in the early 80s to full fuel injection to all the stuff that happened, with computerized cars and all that kind of stuff like that. The transition from that to now is just more computerization, honestly.
Yeah. So you're saying the industry's already gone through these kinds of things. It's just
multiple
that
times.
maybe now it's more of a headline item because the
Correct.
cars are electric versus gasoline.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
I visited I'm not involved in the collision sector, but I visited a client who owns both collision and mechanical. We call the ones that, that's the difference in my world. But I visited, he gave me a tour of his collision shop, and it was half full of Teslas. And I'm like, are these much different than? No, he says it's just nuts and bolts. Just have to be, they're designed a bit differently, built a bit differently, but you just learn, you take the training and you adapt to it, and just will rock and roll, right? Like, it's just, he didn't even blink.
We've got some interesting comments that have come in here since we've started. We got OT, who says he's looking forward to this one. Hey, good to see you there today, OT. Victor from Nottingham says he just hit the like button. I hope that everybody else out there watching takes a moment and hits the like button. It helps us deliver this content to more people. And we got someone with a very spicy name says hello from Northside Auto Pro in Chatham. How you doing? Good to see you. And then we got a comment here from Dave McKenzie. The book Great CEOs Are Lazy is a great book for getting out of the day-to-day and focusing on the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't read that book. Have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't actually. I'm going to take a screenshot of that.
Well, maybe I'll put that on my reading list too. It sounds good. And so basically, in the example that you gave of the family that bought the small town automotive business, it sounds like they were experienced business people,
Mm-hmm.
but because they were getting into a new industry they weren't quite knowledgeable of, they went looking for some way to fill that gap, and that's what led them to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's,
I think that's a great example.
I think every sector will have its unique piece. I don't want to sound like, I know a secret. There's not a secret sauce per se. But it's I think what's partly unique to automotive is the transition that the industry went through that a lot of people are not watching. And let me explain to that. So, for example, if I think of a veterinary practice, a dental practice, a legal practice, accounting firm, plumbing, electrical, all of those kind of things like that, they're all time-based businesses, right? We bill for time. And generally they bill, by the hour, straight time. In fact, the other trades will bill for driving time, mileage, the whole bit, right? Our industry, which should have evolved like that back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, we did have what we called labor guides, and we had different ways and instructions on how we should run our companies and bill. We went down what was called a commodity-based path. Now, this is Murray's version of history. Right?
Okay.
So we went down gasoline stations, fixed cars, and new car dealers, fixed cars. Those were the two main primary business models. There was no big box. There was no aftermarket independent. You either took your car to a garage, gas station, or you took your car to a new car dealer. Now, back in the day, new car dealers only had bays because the franchise made them for warranty purposes. New car dealers saw technicians as a cost, hence the reason for the way that they pay their people. Service stations focused on selling fuel and oil and convenience store stuff. The bays were just this little gravy piece. So what ends up happening is people think that when you buy an automotive shop, you're selling brake jobs, you're selling oil filter, you're selling these services, when in reality you're not. You're selling time.
Right.
And as soon as you get your head around that you sell time like all the other professions, and realize that the brake pads come with it, or the oil filter comes with that time, then all of a sudden the light bulb goes on and away you go. Because if you join the whole thing trying to sell more oil changes and sending out coupons on brake jobs, you will be broke in 6 months. Even this couple, they wouldn't have, I don't think, they're too wise to go down that path, but I've seen it, right? Where people think that it's all about price. We've commoditized the automotive industry, whereas the ones that are the most successful are ones who have broken out of the commodity model and are find the clientele that are looking on how to be served well, right? They don't want to, it's not about the price of an oil change, it's about how well are you looking after me and my vehicle. So
and this is what I've heard from successful operators is that developing the clientele who understand that certain maintenance jobs are an investment in making sure their car will continue to work well and last longer, etc.
Yeah.
Those clients are are worth more versus the people that just wait for things to break and then come and seek a repair. And so, can you talk a little bit about how someone in this industry would go about looking to build a clientele of those people with that mindset that kind of see their spending at an auto repair business as an investment in preserving the capital of their vehicle?
There's some great information on this. The 4 to 7 year old vehicle is generally seen by the owner as having a lot of value still. Now, in our day and age, most people have loans up to 6 years. 72 months is kind of the average, at least in Canada, for vehicle financing. So it's that 4 to 7 year old car. It's just off the new car dealer warranty, and the owners look at it going, it's still a $40,000, $50,000 car in their mind. So they will update it and keep it going and things like that. That number is stretching into the 8, 9, sort of 10-year range, just because cars are being made better. There's some, the features last a bit longer and things like that. So what we want to do is we want to go after that marketplace. But the thing is the new car dealers have stolen 60% of that market share. We used to have 90 in the aftermarket. We've given away a ton of it. And they've done it through all kinds of different methodologies.
And how do you define aftermarket? Is it post-warranty or just after it's been sold?
Post-warranty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, post-warranty. So a couple of things that work really, really well, just a couple of exercises, is we look up recalls for vehicles. Now, we as in the aftermarket post-warranty cannot do recalls. We can't do warranty work. That still has to go back to the new car dealer. But we can be the agent for our client. So we look up recalls, we drive it down to the dealer, we have them look after it, we bring it back, we wash and vacuum it. And the thing is there's, again, pardon me for all the Canadian stats, we have something like 24 million licensed vehicles on the road in Canada. There are something like 21 million orphaned recalls in Canada. The new car dealers are either overwhelmed, understaffed, or have just dropped the ball and following up on these recalls. And it's not that they don't want to do them. They get paid by the manufacturer to do them. It's not, it's still business for them. But as soon as me in the aftermarket brings up a recall to you, David, that your dealer didn't bring up, who now becomes the expert? Now, right now, I become the expert.
It's a trust building activity.
It's a trust building activity, right? And then the second one is the perception that the shop is not qualified to work on my brand of car. We tend to, in the aftermarket, advertise on our signs, all makes and models. Well, that's an internal word, in my opinion. I don't think, one of the reasons why the new car dealers have as great a market share as they have is because the sign says Honda and it says Honda on my steering wheel. The steering wheel is kind of going to go there, right? Like, as I'm a brand awareness type of a thing. But one of the things I do an exercise with my clients, and we do an exercise where we phone all of our clients, or we reach out to them in some fashion when they drop off their car, phone, email, text, and we update our database. We ask them about for current address, current email address, current mobile number, current list of vehicles that we've been servicing, mention that we haven't seen this one vehicle for maybe a couple of years, what's going on with it. And they'll probably say, well, it got written off or we sold it. So then we delete it from the database. And then at that point is a natural conversation. We say, anything else you're driving that maybe we haven't had a chance to service? And the person will say, well, yeah, I bought a new Volkswagen Passat, but you guys don't work on Volkswagen. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Ryan just came back from a Volkswagen course. Like, pardon me for not telling you that we work on Volkswagens. And the guy's like, I dealt with you for 17 years with my Honda. I'm coming back, right? And this is a true story. His name was David as well. I wanted to say his last name just in case somehow in my network of life this guy still follows me. I got his Passat, his wife's Toyota Sienna, and 3 daughters' Honda Civics out of one phone call by just connecting with my database and updating it and being of service and being able to talk about the kinds of vehicles that I work on, right? Huge opportunity.
And so, you're talking about going into your database of customers and actually creating communication with them, a sales call, a two-way call. Yeah. And so this has got to be one of the things that I'm imagining most independent shops just don't do at all. They probably just wait for the phone call to ring or for people to walk through the front door.
Wait for it to ring, wait for the walk in the front door, follow into scams for selling cheap packages and coupons to marketers, spend thousands of dollars on Google ads. The Google ads are great, but they don't know how to do them. So they're wasting their money, right? So the idea is car count. I just finished the material for a course I'm teaching in April. And if I could reverse engineer it, 485 clients 2 vehicles per client. So let's say 500 for sake of argument, right?
Yeah.
1,000 vehicles, 2 visits a year, averaging $600 a visit, $650 a visit for legitimate ethical repairs and maintenance, is 1.3 million in sales at a 20% net and $100,000 owner's compensation salary on top of that. So we're talking 350,000 full owner's compensation out of 1.3 million in sales with 500 clients. Now, do we have turnover? Yes. People die, people move, people sell cars. Do we still need to market? Yes. We need to replace, but we need to replace about 10% a year. So we need to be getting about 12% growth. But just to reverse engineer it, if you actually follow the model, you can have 1 point, and that's not that big of a shop. That's 3 technicians and 2 service advisors and 4 or 5 bays could do that comfortably. And honestly, I've never done the math on number of clientele that sort of graphically recently, but I've got lots of clients that are the 3 techs, 2 advisors, the owner, bookkeeper, doing 1.5, 1.6 million. As soon as you want to get up to higher than that, you need more bays and more techs. Just because you need the volume, right, to get to the higher numbers.
And so, I think when I came over and spoke with a group of your clients, I was talking about this, about the value in the customer database, because I've run into so many businesses, both in automotive and in other industries, where that they just don't take care of the client database. So there's a lot of antiquated old records that haven't been touched in a long time. And this is where a buyer is going to be able to quantify value. We mentioned earlier about goodwill value, but the way people kind of get their hands around goodwill is they say, show me the list of customers and where can I see how recently that person has been here, right? And it's curating and taking care of that database and making sure it's current and up to date, which is what's going to really give the value to the buyer. But the act of updating and taking care of the list is also what generates sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
And back to relationships, like we did talked about our suppliers, right? To me, automotive, probably like most other things, is a relationship business. And there's still research coming out in different forms or another that around 50 to 60% of North Americans are still looking for a shop to have a relationship with. They keep going into a place and they're either processed because the place is so busy, in and out, or they are upsold without building a relationship or whatever, right? But somewhere, will somebody just listen to me? Can somebody just take some time to help me understand my car, take some time with me? But the model, again, so commonly is one advisor with 7 technicians at the back. That poor advisor's got no time in the day to even give anybody the time of day. Not that I'm criticizing that person, but that's just that's a broken model, right?
And so the people who are looking for that relationship, are these the people who might get drawn to some of these big box brands? Like if they can't have a relationship with people, they're at least going to be drawn to maybe a brand they recognize or have some degree of faith in?
They're because this is why the new car dealers have got such big market share, is they're drawn back to the dealer because of the brand, not the relationship. Like the feedback on many dealers is not that great of a client experience, right? Again, I don't want to just paint them all with a bad brush, because there are some good ones, and there's good people working at dealers like across our nations. It's just that the system of how a dealer works is they report to a factory, and the factory will always win over the retail customer. Always, 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 right? So there's a conflict of interest when you bring in your car to the dealer. But people default to brand. If they can't get what they want, well, at least it says Toyota on the sign, or it says Chev on the sign. At least I'll be accountable to that. The big box stores, some of them are tire oriented. So then you get attracted there because tires is a big purchase. It's a big decision for any consumer. It's one of the biggest things you can buy for your vehicle is a set of 4 tires. The box stores tend to be priced, or appear to be priced less, so that the box stores tend to be more of a price commodity based. They've continued the service station model based on pricing and coupons and flyers and stuff like that, honestly, is how they're getting people in their door. So people are going to either default to brand or default to price, as opposed to default to that relationship. And is it hard going? I'll be blunt, but man, is it rewarding when it's working well, right? It's very profitable. It's a very calm environment for the staff, for the technicians there. Yeah.
Can you tell us a story of a client maybe that you've helped? What some of the challenges were in in the last 10 minutes that we have here? What some of the challenges were that they were facing? Maybe how their shop was performing, and then some of the things that they implemented as far as changes in order to get a much better operating business.
Well, let me go at this from two points of view that are
Good.
commonly that we do with people. One point of view is taking a look at their numbers, their key performance indicators, and generally looking at gross profit, right? Gross profit dollars, gross profit percentages based on what we know were expressed in the industry. And we'll identify that they're too low, right? They have a misconception of how they're supposed to charge for their parts and things like that. So I've got one client in central Canada who joined us about 18 months ago, and his gross profit on parts was just shy of 30%. And it's kind of a default number, 30%, because a lot of people think 50% markup is what they're supposed to do, but markup and margin are different. So if you
Yeah.
mark something at 50%, it's only about a 33% margin. So part of it is just lack of knowledge. When we show them that, so the light bulb goes on. So over the course of the last 18 months, he's gone from 30 to 47 as of last month. In his specific case, that's $10,000 a month in gross profit dollars.
Right.
Like, this is insane, right? Now, in the process, as it was raising, he did have a few rare objections from clients in terms of pricing. They compared him to somebody, or maybe compared him to past invoices or things like that. And he said he and his advisor worked through those conversations, and they lost a half a dozen clients in 18 months over pricing. They may have lost other ones over other things. And he said 3 of them, I wasn't so glad to see their backside leave my business. They've always been a challenge, right? Over
Right.
whatever, right? That kind of thing. The other side is more operational, and is, book more cars, get them in, offer somebody an appointment for 10 o'clock. They show up at 10, and the hoist and the technician are tied up because something broke on that car. Now I can't clear the hoist off. So we start working at scheduling and helping people understand that, listen, the world of cars today, we can no longer have these wait appointments anymore. Cars are just changed too much, too complex. Supply chain issues were already an issue pre-COVID, and they've just been
So
exacerbated.
a wait appointment, meaning that the client shows up and expects to sit in a chair for an hour while
For an
something is
hour while
done.
they're doing an oil change. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. Now, think about it. I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we have these quick doctor's appointments in our system these days, right? We're supposed to book one appointment for every incident that we do for. But I'm very privileged and very lucky that I still have a doctor. And he said, Murray, it's been a couple of years. We need to do a full workup. So I had all my blood work, all my fluids tested, a full examination. I got some moles and stuff like that. And so it's frustrating when we can just do these one-off appointments, when really what we want to do is sit down with the doctor and go over our health, right? Well, cars want the same thing. Now, of course, I'm anthropomorphizing a little bit. They can't verbalize that, but the best way to look after a car is to look at it as an entity, not just change the oil. How is the rest of it? Which means that we need to do some form of inspection, which means that it's going to be a little bit longer than what an oil change takes. And maybe it does need a fluid serviced, or maybe it does need a front brake service at that point. Why would we have to book multiple appointments? And the interesting thing is, for some of the driving public, they think they have to book it all separate, because we taught them that. I book my oil change, and then 2 weeks later I book my tire changeover, and then 2 weeks later I book in my brakes, and then 3 weeks later I book in a filter. When you show the client, hey, why don't we do it all together in one visit? A lot of them are like, sweet, why didn't you offer this to me before? Because now I'm only going to be without my car for a full day, which is fine. I can manage that. I can get alternative transportation, or maybe the shop has alternative transportation. Versus now I'm going to lose a half a day 4 times in this year.
Yeah.
The consumer is actually, so it's counterintuitive to the way the shop owner thinks, because they think the consumer wants will wait appointments, when in reality the 60% that want the relationship, they don't want a will wait appointment. They don't want to be processed. They want to come in, they want to talk calmly, they want to have a coffee with you, they want to leave their car for the day, and then have you communicate throughout the day, and then have a convenient pickup time, right? And now with digital communication, this whole world of digital vehicle inspections that we can do now, absolutely amazing to meet those expectations.
It's interesting to hear you say this, because I honestly I have not thought about this, because the shop where I take my car to is a short walk from my house. So I have always just driven it over and then walked home and
Mhm.
then wait for them to call me in the afternoon to
Mhm.
say it's done. I go down and get it.
Yeah.
And but every time I'm there, I see people sitting in chairs.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I'm like, oh, how long is that person going to be here? Like, it seems,
So
I don't know.
yeah, I'm just. Do I have 3 more minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So COVID identified this process called contactless service. We were mandated. In other words, the vehicles had to be dropped off, through a key drop system or some other kind of sanitized bucket. Everything was then communicated, phone, digitally. Everything was done that way. And then the vehicle was picked up. The keys were, you paid your bill digitally, and you picked up your keys in a sanitized box, whatever, right? Well, believe it or not, 8, 9 months into this whole thing, consumers were like, this is fantastic. I don't know why I sat and waited at the shop before. I don't know why I thought I had to wait, right? Why, like, it wasn't about trust. There's a few consumers that are a bit about, they got to watch everything because they don't want to get ripped off. But for whatever reason, it was a model that they assumed they had to be. And it got to be where 70% were like, this is awesome. And then as the pandemic prolonged, we were still an essential service. So we were one of the few legal places where people could come and actually chat with a human being. And so then it dropped back off again down to about 45 to 50, where people began to bring their cars and wait again because they were allowed. But it was more about a social occasion. This is research by J.D. Parr and Associates. I mean, we're talking a serious organization, research organization. So post-pandemic, we've now landed in a 45% range of people who want that. I, as a person who is on Zoom all day or in meetings like this, I can see my truck sitting out there, would love nothing more than it to be picked up, serviced, brought back at the end of the day. I can pay through my computer, my phone. They can send me digital inspections in between my meetings. And you know what? It's a half-hour drive each way. A cab is $45 each way. That's $90. If my bill averaged, $80 to $100 more on average for whatever they did compared to their competitors, I wouldn't care because I am working for 2 more hours in my day that would be taken up by doing with the car, right?
Hey, listen, I just recorded a video that's going to be released in a couple of weeks about valuing your time. It's right up that alley. And here's a question here from Moncton Strong. It says, any opinion on courtesy drive home and pickup while the vehicle is being serviced? You just talked about the idea of someone coming to your home to pick up the
Mm-hmm.
car.
Yeah.
Is there any, I guess we would get back to the same research. Like, is there any preferred system, or do you think it has to do with the clientele that the shop is serving?
I think it depends with the clientele, the area. So, for example, a smaller community, more rural, people are driving further to get to you. It makes more sense for them to wait for some smaller services or maybe do their, but maybe provide a ride to the grocery store for them. You know what I'm saying? In a larger urban center, a lot of my clients are beginning to use Uber for business, and they're just giving people an Uber ride wherever they need at their own cost, at the shop owner's cost. Now, again, is it built into the gross profit model of that experience? Of course it is. But the consumer, I believe most of them are wise enough to know that it's all built in. So Uber for Business is a great alternative. Through the pandemic and currently, I probably still have half a dozen people who do pick up and delivery for a small charge. $15 each way is the most common amount in Calgary, Regina. In fact, I still know one shop in Regina that's still fully contactless. They loved not having people walk in their door and interrupt them for stupid things. They do everything digitally and dropping off after hours. Right. So they've chosen a clientele that's happy with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
If you serve a professional clientele who has a high sort of hourly rate of income for their own efforts,
yeah.
$15 pickup and drop off charge is nothing.
Right.
It's a great value.
There's a couple of people have experimented with this, and the issue was more about staffing than cost. One guy I know bought 6 courtesy vehicles, loaners, had a valet who would then, so an example of my place, would drop off the car here, take my vehicle, and then we would have a vehicle for the day. My wife might, she'd be a bit more active than I would like throughout the day for other stuff. She would use the car, and then she could either swap it out at the shop for her car, or they could bring it back and swap back out at the house, right? But just having that right person to be the valet that was willing to drive customers, but also wash and vacuum customers sometimes was, the shop found that challenge. I think they're still doing it. They found the right person again, but that's another sort of high-end model of client care that we could take this business to, right?
We've got another comment here from Mark who says, I just read in a book, I'm guessing, How the Rubber Meets the Road, about using a $39.99 inspection to sort out customers that are concerned with upkeep, which are the best customers versus the others. Have you ever heard of this sort of method of sorting out your customers?
I I teach all of my clients, we implement systems and procedures, and the systems and procedures will sort out the customers. So having a good inspection process for a fee will help sort that out, because you identify people who are interested in their vehicle versus somebody who's just looking for the cheapest price. So the specific dollar value of that $39.95 might be good in some markets. There's no criticism of it. We teach a staged inspection process where we give everybody a small complimentary of 0.2 12-minute visual inspection, which then tells our technician what level of inspection to offer at that case. If the car is well looked after, it could be a $40 inspection. If the vehicle's been driven for a while and not inspected, maybe it's a full inspection for $200. So we actually use a range, and to the point where we actually work with our clients to pre-book their next appointment. I've got shops that half their database is pre-booked for the year for their visits, like a dentist office. Right at that point, we've qualified those clients' expectations.
Yeah. I've seen that before, where both with my own cars and where I've happened to be at the shop where people were in there talking, where the service writer will say to the person, your car is due for this, in so many kilometers, and so let's book you in for 3 months from now and schedule it.
So
the
word free means two things in automotive. It means that the shop who's offering free will be broke within a short span of time, or they've actually hidden that cost of free somewhere else. You're actually probably paying more than you would at a shop that actually charges you for it. Free, we always taught our kids, if it's too good to be true, it is usually too good to be true.
Sorry, I'm not following with the free.
Oh, okay. So let's say, for example, we offer a free inspection instead of charging $40, and we tracked all of these people who come in for the free inspection, right?
Right.
And then because, and we give away 20 inspections in a day, we've lost all that time that we haven't billed. If we don't understand the rest of how business works, we'll go broke because we're giving away free. What a lot of
because you're putting all that labor expense out.
Right. Yeah. But a lot of people will give it free, but then instead of adding, then the brake job will actually be $50 more than what it would have been done without the inspection. So what they're doing is they're padding the rest of the work to compensate themselves for the free inspection. So they've shifted. So it isn't really free. It's just hidden. Right.
Yeah. In my experience, to get back to Mark's point here, there's no better way to understand someone's level of motivation than if somebody opens their wallet, because if someone's really motivated and interested in doing something, that they're going to be willing to pay money for it. And so just having some kind of charge to determine someone's desire is important. Back when I used to run my business brokerage office, we required sellers to pay us an engagement fee and bring in a whole bunch of documents. And so people that were kind of lukewarm, that weren't really motivated to sell their business, they would rarely come back. Other people would show up 2 days later with a check and all the documents I asked for. And so I would say to my buyers, like, this is definitely a motivated person who really wants to sell the business, because they've jumped through these hoops that I've put in front of them, and they want to move forward with some degree of speed.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Great example.
Murray, this is great. We're kind of up at the end of our time, but if people are out there in the automotive world, they want to learn more about you. I know you've got some content that you put out online as well, talking about this sort of thing. What's the best way people can reach you?
Murray Voth at rpmtraining.net is my email address, or just go to rpmtraining.net on the internet, and there's a contact form there you can fill in and elaborate on some questions, and I can reach back out to you. It'd be a privilege.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Murray. I know it's been a great show. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, David.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.